everyone. I just wanted to pop on today and film what I hope will be a short video about the sextile we have currently between Saturn and Pluto. A sextile is a 60-degree aspect to do with opportunity, and this aspect between Saturn and Pluto is exact on the 28th of March, but it will continue within orb until the 5th of April. But it's only going to happen once and then move on because Saturn moves much more quickly. Although, as I say, it's normally quite a small aspect, it takes on a lot more potency because it's part of this unique configuration, this kind of mini triangle, which I'll show you in a moment if you're not familiar with it. It takes on a great deal more importance. And so this is happening on the 28th of March. It's happening at 6:12 p.m. Eastern and 10:12 p.m. UK time. And so what this is about essentially is structural transformation, structural Saturn transformation Pluto, Saturn sextile Pluto. And let me just show you this first of all so you can orientate yourself. I won't keep this chart up for long, but just to show you. So this is what we're talking about. This is Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius, 509, and Saturn at 509 of Aries. So it's an exact 60-degree angle, exact sextile, which will be, as I say, exact on the 28th of March. And the reason it's important is it's really part of this mini triangle, this trine between Pluto and Uranus, and Neptune and Saturn have been exactly at the midpoint of that and really will continue to be, or certainly Neptune will continue to be, all through this year. This mini triangle kind of clicks into exactitude in July. That's why I think July will be a real crescendo month of the year, but April is a huge peak month as well. And I'll be talking about that really separately in the video I do for the new moon in Aries, looking at the second half of April, because I think that is huge. But anyway, this is what we're going to be focusing on in this short presentation, this short video. So always when we have any kind of aspect, it's really helpful to go back to the seed point. And the seed point in terms of astrology is the conjunction, when those two planets, Saturn and Pluto, came together in conjunction. Well, as many of you know, that was on the 12th of January, 2020. And that was really the beginning of the pandemic. And I never know what the event's going to be, but Pluto intensifies whatever it touches. So Saturn is about rules and regulations and top-down control, and Pluto was intensifying that. And so I just kept hearing kind of jackboots on the tarmac, as it were, but I didn't know what manifestation it would have. And of course, we know what happened. The rest is history. And it was so interesting to me. It was so literal that when the lockdowns began, Saturn had just entered Aquarius on the 22nd of March. Now, Aquarius is the sign linked to freedom, or one of them, along with Sagittarius, I would say, and Saturn is top-down control, and limitation. So within one day of Saturn entering Aquarius, we had limitations on freedom. It was really so literal. So if we go back to those times, and it was very tough for all of us, I think. Nobody escaped perfectly easily through those times, whether it was your health, your relationships, your work, whatever. And I just want to share some of the choices that I made then, because some of you may find this helpful in the theme of what I'm talking about in this video. So In my country, as soon as the lockdown started, they started to have a daily update, 6 o'clock every evening, a daily update of what was happening in terms of numbers and etc. And after about 2 or 3 of these, I thought, I can't do this. This is just too miserable, because if I'm going to walk my talk and I'm always saying that your state of being is your top priority and everything cascades from that, then I can't be in misery every day, because that's not going to serve me and it's not going to serve the people around me, etc., etc. So I gave away my television at that point. So that was 6 years ago to the month. And I haven't watched mainstream news since then. And at the same time, as I was going in for my weekly shopping to a supermarket, very large superstore here, you couldn't see any smiles. You couldn't see any smiling faces. And again, that just felt absolutely miserable. So I thought, I'm not going to do this. So at that point, I contacted a company who sources all their fruit and vegetables from local organic farmers, local organic growers. And every week, the produce arrives in a cardboard box with no other packaging, which is great, all organic, and I'm supporting local farmers. So in cutting out the middleman, it actually gives more profit to the farmers and growers. So it's a win-win-win all round. So I haven't been to a supermarket in the last 6 years. I also, some of you know, I've had some health issues over the many years. All of us have, one kind or another. Some of them small, some of them much more significant. And I've made great strides, I think, in fixing all of those naturally. At a certain age now, I'm on no prescription medication, and I've fixed all of those problems that I had. Many of you know about my knee, etc. Naturally, I found natural ways to do it. Now, maybe that won't always be the case in the future. I actually think we're going to have amazing healing technologies coming in. It's going to be a very big shift from kind of chemistry to energy and frequency. And I think that's absolutely, we're on the precipice of that. So the reason I'm sharing my choices with you is, and of course I was already self-employed as well, so in terms of my work structure, self-employment, I work from home. In terms of my media consumption, stopped watching mainstream news and started to listen to alternative channels or podcasts, or just go within, frankly. My shopping habits, how I do my shopping and how that's structured, my health choices, those are just choices, some of them small, some of them large, that I just to share with you in terms of how I have emotionally and energetically decoupled from some of the old ways of living, the old system. Now, I'm still an extremely law-abiding citizen. I'm not living off grid yet. I'm not living in a community yet. But I think that is most certainly the direction of travel of many, many people. So just be very alert and aware of your choices as we go through, because that will become even more important when Uranus enters Gemini on the 26th of April. And of course, that's the planet of freedom in the sign of your day-to-day routine. So people will very much want more freedom in their day-to-day routine, and Uranus stays in that sign until 2033. So just be aware of these things. And so, of course, people so often say, well, things seem to be getting more controlled, more contracted rather than less. But in following the astrology, it's very clear that when an old system, an old control system is under threat, there's a further contraction. I've often said that it will become louder but more hollow. noisier but more hollow. And this is what we're in at the moment. And it's almost like going through kind of labor contractions, because the old system very much wants to hang on, but with every kind of contraction of society, it's actually helping to birth the new baby, the new Earth chick, if you like. And in that a recent update, I was talking about the analogy of a hen's egg, and we've all been staring at it for a long time, not realizing there's a whole new biology, a whole new life growing within it. And there comes a day where the chick has outgrown the structure completely, so it chips its way through the shell, Saturn, the structure, and the shell, the structure, is now completely outgrown and redundant. That is exactly what's happening on a socio-political scale now, because with the increased contractions, and there will be more to come, people just decide, because with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, there has been, I would say, some and maybe a lot of disillusionment, Saturn-Neptune, in leadership, Aries. Neptune is the illusion, the deception, the veil. Saturn is the reality check. So as people become more aware of perhaps where there's been corruption in leadership or government, and they may think that they might have been on a protest or demonstration in the past, but they begin to think, was that just energizing the old system within the old paradigm? And am I better just to quietly exit, buy a camper van? That kind of life is increasing very significantly. Meet some like-minded people, move into community, move off grid. That is expanding very rapidly. Now, please don't write to me, because I don't know any communities personally. You each have to find your own soul tribe and go from there. But I know, I remember, I wish I'd kept a note of it, actually. I saw a podcast a few months ago, and the lady in question, unfortunately, I can't even remember her name, but she was talking about being in touch with about 200 or 300 communities they are intentional communities. They set a clear intention for how it's going to operate, whether it's very much family based or food growing based or shamanically based or, whatever. And these are going to expand, because that's the astrology I'm looking at. Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius, power to the people, decentralization. Yes, there are going to be desperate efforts at centralization and control and bringing it all together, but the ultimate direction of travel, if you are astute in your choices, is decentralization, is things like living in a community of like-minded people. And those communities will form networks, grids of light, webs of light all over the world, and share information. And it's going to be a very, very different future if you make different choices. So this sextile, as I say, is about structural transformation. And it's also realizing that there isn't a savior. Nobody's coming to save us. And though that may be disappointing and deflating, it would have been so much nicer if somebody had been coming to save us. You suddenly realize, and that's actually very empowering, that you step into your own spiritual responsibility. You take control of your life. You step into your inner authority. And so this shift is going to be very deliberate, very conscious. Saturn, as I say, is to do with structures of leadership in Aries, which I think, as I've mentioned recently, is going to change very significantly to become much more grassroots based as opposed to top down. Pluto makes things permanent. Saturn makes them pragmatic and realistic and done with integrity, because Saturn actually has a very clear moral compass. And so this is where we're headed. So be very conscious and aware of this bigger picture. And it will, at the 3D level, be chaotic because the energy, the high frequency light codes coming in, it just can't sustain anything based on lower vibration. You know, the old structures, if they weren't based on love, they're going to crack and crumble and collapse. There's no energetic architecture to sustain them. So this is huge. This is, you know, what's happening this year with that very unique configuration of that mini triangle, which has never been seen astrologically before. No astrologer has been able to say, look, I found it, it happened before. It hasn't. And it's particularly potent because Neptune is on the world axis, and it's still there right now, and it's coming back on the world axis from October onwards this year and into, I think, Jan-Feb next year. And when any planet is on the world axis, it throws these themes onto the public stage in a bigger way. So this is a huge year of transformation. And if we can see that bigger picture, it really helps us to take these opportunities, because this Saturn sextile Pluto is a one-time hit. It's not going to happen again. It's a one-time hit, and then Saturn moves on because it moves so much faster than Pluto, of course. So think big picture, think strategically, think opportunity, think finding a like-minded tribe that you can move forwards with in your future. So I'll be back very, very soon with that update on the second half of April, which, as I say, I think is absolutely huge energetically. God bless. Bye for now.